Larian Studios are one of the most passionate, dedicated, and best video game studios out there, and they prove that time and time again with the dedication and commitment to their projects. Patch 4 for Baldur's Gate 3 is no exception, with well over 1,000 patch notes and so many new additions, improvements, fixes, tweaks, and changes, etc. So now that I've had time to go through and comb through these notes properly, in this video, let me highlight the top 40 most important, biggest changes for you so that you don't have to go through and read all 1,500 notes if you don't want to. In no particular order, let's get straight into it. Firstly, one I've been banging on about for a while and I'm so happy has been changed. You can now customize which solution is selected in the second slot on the Alchemy panel. No more having to manipulate your bags to make sure you're using the correct reagent. Now you can select from the drop down and it will all be done automatically for you. Also, as you can see, another added bonus from this as we're looking at the elixir of fire resistance. If you have forgotten exactly which other recipes your ingredients are used for, on this screen you can hover over them all in turn and make sure that you're not wasting anything that could be brewed on something really powerful, such as the elixir of the Colossus with the Chasm Creeper. Sometimes in combat you may have noticed that NPCs take ages to end their turn. I was never really sure exactly what the cause was, but it's been confirmed it was due to them trying to reach an unreachable position. This has been mostly fixed and turns are far quicker than they were previously. There are still a couple of exceptions, of course. It's an absolutely gigantic game with thousands of branching options and hundreds of different environments to fight in. So of course there's going to be the occasional little tweak needed here and there, but largely this one has been rectified. For those of us who want to lean into the dark urge, the Slayer form has had an insane amount of buffs. Now you can attack up to 4 times in one turn, obviously including your bonus action. Now at higher levels, you can attack up to 3 times in a turn, 4 times if you include your bonus action, which is still damn powerful as the Slayer. And your critical hit damage now works correctly at higher levels as well, along with a few other minor buffs, making the Slayer form the true powerhouse it was always meant to be. This is now well worth using in every situation. It's so damn strong. If, like me, you don't manually save quite as often as you should, and occasionally you want to retry that failed roll, but you end up having to load back like 15 or 20 minutes ago, more autosaves have been added to the game. Plenty in the Shadow Cursed lands, and several in the Worms Crossing and Lower City locations, including the Steel Watch Foundry as you see here, the Iron Throne and Rivington. Now let me talk you through a few camp updates. Firstly, unique map icons have been added for the Magic Mirror and Wither's Wardrobe. Wither's Wardrobe is a multiplayer feature, so I don't have that here so you don't see it, but you will see the magic mirror on my minimap. Also, none of my companions currently want to speak to me, but map markers have been added for when your characters want to speak to you, so for them larger camps, you don't have to run around for ages trying to figure out who wants to talk to you. Next up, also, when hiring hirelings, you now have the ability to customize their appearance. I must admit, I've never used a hireling before. As you see by hiring this one, I just got the achievement for it. But I probably should, because I'm sure you can do some wild combinations with hirelings, and this makes me want to even more. And finally, let me murder my new hirelings so I can kind of demo this. You can now dismiss dead avatars to Wither's Wardrobe. As I say, I don't have the wardrobe here because I'm not playing in co-op, but Withers will explain to you exactly how the wardrobe works. And what I understand from this for other people like me who haven't played co-op, however, someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, you're able to add and remove these characters to your party, even if the other players you were playing with who were controlling these characters aren't online. They'll be available for everyone in the wardrobe, even if they're dead. It is done. And finally, for the camp, you'll see my magnificent true hero of Baldur's Gate statue here. And I must admit, when I purchased it, I didn't really want it showing my armor, especially the hat. I'm really not a fan of it. However, now, as of the update, if you head to the circus and go and speak to Boney, now when requisitioning a statue, you can choose whether you would like it in your armor, your camp clothes, or even naked. So I'm sure I know which option most people will be picking. This next update may sadden a few people with your OP ranged dexterity builds, but the Dexterity Modifier has now been fixed for ranged offhand attacks. This means it is no longer added to the damage, and it aligns with offhand melee attacks. So you're not going to be able to do stupid amounts of cheesy damage with this at low levels. However, I believe, judging by the patch notes, this is still offsetted if you acquire the dual wielder feat when you level up. There have also been a few improvements for the Steel Watchers. And by that, don't worry, I don't mean buffs, they're already powerful enough. Actually, they've been kind of nerfed. Now, whenever you are fighting a Steel Watcher alongside any NPC companions, when it gets to the point where they are starting to charge up their self-destruct, your NPC allies will give consideration to this and will move out the way if they can. This is going to be amazing for saving all the Gondians. And the second Steel Watcher change is that they will no longer now hunt you down forever once you have fought one of them. This happened to me and I was so frustrated. I thought I'd done something wrong with Gortash. Turns out it was just the Steel Watchers being bitches, and that has now been rectified. A few bosses who didn't feel challenging enough have been buffed, including Raphael and Cazador, but primarily they have been buffed in Tactician mode. There's been a few tweaks that apply to every mode, but specifically Cazador has been significantly buffed in Tactician mode. He now correctly has the permanent legendary resistance buff. He can now correctly turn into a swarm of bats to move around faster, and the fall damage cheese has been removed, along with a few other minor buffs. And talking of the permanent legendary resistance buff, Saravok has also had that correctly added, again only in Tactician mode. So good luck with them 3 fights, because they are all going to be significantly harder now on Tactician, which is great because I've just started playing through on Tactician, so wish me luck. Another encounter that has been significantly buffed in Tactician mode is Houndmaster Pol at the graveyard in the lower city. My first thoughts were, good, you shouldn't be going in and killing a bunch of ghost dogs anyway. They're just trying to rest in peace with their master. Stop looting their graves, you're so mean. They're just lovely doggos trying to rest in peace with their master and protect him, and you're trying to rob them. So yeah, good on you, Houndmaster Pol. I'm glad you got them buffs. I still have never actually played a Paladin yet, so I'm not sure exactly how much game impact this note will have, but I thought it was absolutely hilarious, so I wanted to call this out and put it in the video specifically, because this did have me chuckling. Word for word, it says, added new moments in which a Paladin will break their oath, like torturing a prisoner, killing a pixie after helping her, burying someone alive, breaking someone's legs. You know, your regular Tuesday afternoon. This next one makes me very happy and means that the Iron Throne is fairly completable even without potions of speed. Levers in the Iron Throne now work like other levers in the game and therefore will open cell doors when attacked, i.e. you can shoot them from range with your crossbows, or probably even open multiple at once using magic missiles, and I can't believe I have only just thought of that this second. That is going to change the game. That's going to make the Iron Throne so much easier. So yeah, if you were there before and didn't manage to rescue everyone, this should hopefully help with that. As you have probably gathered so far from the video, many of these significant changes impact Act 3, and that is because Act 3 really did need the most amount of work that has been fully identified by both the community and the developers, and I'm so happy that Act 3 is getting as much love as it deserves and needs. Just listen to this, for instance. When looking specifically at the gameplay bug fixes and changes tab of the patch notes, Act 1 got 8 fixes, Act 2 got 10 fixes, and Act 3 got nearly 70 fixes. And that's just talking about gameplay specific bugs. There has also been a ton of flow, scripting changes, additions, improvements, and fixes in each of the 3 specific acts. And long story short, what this means is all NPCs will now act smarter. They'll stop doing out-of-character actions occasionally, which will help with the flow of immersion, and generally they'll start to react to all situations correctly, helping to keep you immersed in the game world. And this is very prevalent in Act 3, with over 100 improvements and fixes just in the flow and scripting category alone. One of the patch notes that initially seems pretty insignificant but is honestly so key is that doorways have been fixed. Sometimes it looked like they were open but they were acting like they were closed, so it was really hard for you to actually get through the door. What you'd end up having to do is basically move the character into the building, zoom it right in, and then click somewhere in the building to be able to get through the door. Now you can just walk through them as expected by selecting the ground the other side of the doorway. This sounds so silly and insignificant, but trust me, as I'm sure everyone here will know, this was such a bloody pain, and I'm so grateful this has now been fixed. Being able to just walk around in doorways feels so good. Anyone here that has fought against the Githyanki will probably have frequently forgotten that as long as they have a reaction ready, they have the ability to parry your attacks. If you examine them, this has always been there as one of their notable features, but now, when their parry is ready, it is very clearly stated as the ready to parry condition. So it's now super easy for you to distinguish when they have parry available, which will help you with your decisions in combat and stop you from making so many silly mistakes and having them parry Karlach's really powerful attacks right at the start of the round. Just to be clear, if you haven't fought the Githyanki, this isn't a change to the gameplay, this has always been there, but they've just made this ability more obvious and clear now, so you stop making stupid mistakes. Another mechanic that has been updated is Speak with Dead. Now, if you cast it again after not asking any questions the first time, you will actually be able to speak to the corpse. Previously, they acted as if you had actually used the spell, and you'd basically just wasted it. So, to use the example they give in the patch notes, if you're told a corpse doesn't want to speak to its killer, and then you cast it again in wild shape or in disguise, you will now correctly be able to speak to them. It won't think you've wasted your spell. The next very important patch note I wanted to identify for you is that Endgame Allies during the final sequence of events have been buffed. This is going to be awesome on Tactician mode. I personally think they were already pretty damn strong, especially if you're good at gathering your allies and you've got like 10 different groups to use. But specifically, the groups that have been buffed are as follows: the Harpers, the Gur Hunters, Florix Cohort, the Nightbringers Adepts, the Armored Owlbear, Mazora, and the spell unlocked by Mol's Boon. They are all more powerful in various ways. Some have had their health increased, some have had their damage increased, some cast more spells, but the long and short of it is your endgame allies are now going to help out even more than they did before. I am a keyboard and mouse player, so I can't really comment on the controller changes, but for controller players who are watching right now, I just wanted to let you know there has been a load of improvements for the controller. So I will leave the patch notes down in the description. Just search the word controller and go and have a look at all of the changes that they have made and all of the improvements they have made when using a controller. For anyone here that knows about using Victoria's body to cheese a load of encounters because of the death fog stuff that she emits, that's been patched out now. You can no longer use Victoria's body to basically cheese the entirety of Act 3. It works as intended, and there's no way for you to fuck about with it to break the game, which I am grateful about because I think it was dumb. Stop doing it. Well, I say stop doing it. Now you have to stop doing it. Many journal entries have also been improved and reworked to give the player a more clear direction for certain objectives. Many quests will stop confusing the player by trying to update early or during the wrong trigger, and new entries have been added to improve the flow of certain quests. There has also been a ridiculous amount of level design changes. Don't worry, I don't mean anything drastic, but through these changes, you can really tell how much the devs care about making sure we get as perfect of an experience as possible. So what I mean by these level design changes is that the positioning, the rotation, and the elevation of so many different objects has been tweaked even just slightly to remove little bits of clipping and inconsistencies so the game world feels more real. Tiny little tweaks like this add so much more immersion and really help the game world to feel alive and realistic. Like, if you read through the patch notes, there are multiple lines where they say, oh, this rock has been moved like 1 inch to the left or rotated 6 degrees or something, just to make sure there's no clipping and it looks absolutely perfect. And the last few super important patch notes I wanted to call out for you. Firstly, there has been a ton of significant performance improvements and optimization, so the game should run even smoother no matter what platform and no matter what system specs you've got. Also, many incorrect and missing icons and portraits have been added and or fixed. Not that there was that many in the first place anyway, but there was the occasional time where it might just show up as a black box. I now believe every single icon and portrait in the game is correct and looking as spicy as ever. Oh, and in that vein, the potion of mind reading has also had its color changed, so you don't keep getting it confused with the potions of healing now, which, little thing, but that made me very happy. And last but most certainly not least, if I went in depth into what I'm about to tell you, this could be a whole video in and of itself. But I'm just going to tell you that there have been literally hundreds of art, animation, lighting, VFX, SFX, and writing improvements. And what I mean by this, some of the prevalent changes, there have been many general improvements made to the way the camera works, particularly for the shorter races. And there has also been tweaks, updates, fixes, and improvements to mocap, staging, and facial expressions in many dialogues throughout the entire game. And on top of that, you'll notice significantly reduced jitters, popping, and clipping in many dialogues across the game. Not that I really noticed much anyway, but the fact that they are still actively working to make sure every single instance of this has been removed brings so much joy to me. I love this game, and Larian Studios are doing an incredible job of making it as perfect as possible. And with that, my friends, that is all of the most important changes you needed to know from patch 4 of Baldur's Gate 3. So, as always, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.